So when we talk about compassion, for it to be complete, it must exist at all three levels of the personality: the intellect, the mind, and the body. So let's have a look at how these three elements come together. So when it comes to the intellect, we can think of compassion as being an understanding of what the other person is going through. Even if you've never gone through it yourself, it's a purely cognitive aspect. You know the environment that the person is in, the stimuli that they are receiving, the kinds of reactions and feelings that they're going through, and you know perhaps why they are going through them. It's purely information. The mind's participation is to feel what they are going through. And again, even if you have never gone through it yourself, the human personality is wonderfully imaginative. We can draw things from our own lives that start to build an emotional sense of what the person's going through. If you are speaking to someone who has just lost a parent, and both of your parents are still alive, healthy, you've never experienced the loss of a parent. Does that mean that you can't empathize, that you can't experience compassion? Of course not. You've experienced loss in your own way. You understand the role of your parents in your own life. You can put all of your past experiences together along with what the other person is revealing to you and build a feeling that is an approximation of what the other person is going through. It won't be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. The third aspect of compassion is with regards to the body and action. What it means is that we are committed to making choices that are directed towards the other person's well-being. It's not enough to understand what the person's going through and to feel it. Compassion arises when the ego falls away. What that means is you experience the other person's experience on their behalf. Now, if you look at your own experience, all of the experiences you've ever had, one of the key elements of that is that you desire your own well-being. Everybody has that desire for themselves. We all seek to move away from suffering and towards peace. Complete compassion recognizes this. You feel the other person's desire for their own well-being and it becomes yours. So without that intent to serve the other person's well-being, compassion is not complete. So one of the reflection questions we have here: provide an example of when you've seen compassion in action. Now this can be real, it can be fictional, where you've seen genuine compassion in action. So importantly and happily, we are hardwired for compassion. It's a part of us. So there's a relatively famous experiment or paper where what they call mirror neurons were discovered in monkeys. When one monkey was wired to a brain scan and was observing the experience of a second monkey, the same experience centers were activated in the one watching. The brain was mirroring what was going on in the other. We're hardwired for compassion, and it's necessary for our survival as individuals and as a species. The other side, of course, is selfishness. We're also hardwired to be selfish or ego-centered. So again, that idea of ego is that it is an exaggerated emphasis on myself, my thoughts and ideas, feelings, my actions. When we are caught up in the ego or selfishness, it is a sense of being disconnected. I can't focus on what others are going through if I'm hyper-focused on what I am going through. So if we want to look at a definition of selfishness, we can think of it as serving those demands or wants of the ego without consideration for others. You hold your thumb up in front of you and you focus on it. The whole background goes out of focus. Now switch, look at the background, and the thumb goes out of focus. If you're focused on the ego's demands, consideration for others goes out of focus. We can't think about what their needs are, what their well-being is. So ego comes from the past. Our ego is essentially a memory of who and what we are, built from past experiences. It'll be a distortion of the truth because we are viewing things from our own personal perspective. It'll be imprecise because memory is not 100% correct. So anytime we're functioning from ego, we're coming from imperfect memory. So, same reflection question. What's an example of where you've seen selfishness in action? Again, real life or otherwise. When selfishness subsides, compassion arises. It's that natural state. So the process of this emotionally intelligent communication help us stay focused in the present and to consider another person's well-being. These are the two key elements that move us away from selfishness. So we remain self-aware. We have a clear perception of what's coming in from outside us, the sort of reactions that are going on within us, our own needs, wants and goals, and our options for action.